845, varsity man up. It's game time.
Okay, Justin Rodriguez here with the Varsity 845 football podcast here with Kevin Gleason. This is the debut. We're really excited about this because we're going to be doing this every week, and even better yet, starting next week, I want to have players and coaches in to obviously talk about Section 9 football. This week, we're going to talk a little bit, go class by class as the season begins, and talk about some of the games to watch in week one. So, Kevin, let's start. We'll start with Class A because you actually did a lot of the work for our blowout preview section. And in case you didn't pick that up, that's on varsity845.com. That is the preview section. Buy as many copies as you want, too. But yeah, so Class A, now in two divisions. But just give me what should we expect in Class A?
Well, it's going to be really interesting, at these two divisions. One of the wild cards is the Poughkeepsie team. I'm not sure if everybody really, has a great understanding of what they're going to bring out and what they're going to do. So to me, that's like one of the most intriguing, elements of interest with this class is Poughkeepsie's, entrance into the league, and they have a coach who John Castellano, who had great success at Nyack High School for a number of years, and he's in his second season now and is going to the spread offense, as many teams have. Some estimates say about 90% of the Section 9 is running the spread. So Castellano, a wing T coach forever, won 2 state titles at Nyack running the wing T, and now he's going to spread it out with an amazing group of athletes that he has at Poughkeepsie this season. So that's going to be really, really interesting right there, just what Poughkeepsie's going to bring.
Well, help me out with my picks. I have Poughkeepsie Red Hook week 1, and I do think Red Hook will be much improved. I'm going to go with Poughkeepsie. Do you like that pick?
I do like that pick. I think Poughkeepsie's going to be, in the same league, figuratively speaking, as not just literally speaking, but figuratively speaking, as Cornwall and Wallkill at some point in the season. I think they could maybe play with those two teams. I think Poughkeepsie's going to be one of the best teams in Class A. I really do.
I have to say, in my preseason rankings, I think I had Poughkeepsie 5th, and I didn't have Wallkill in the rankings. And then I went to camp. I was at Wallkill's camp. I got another chance to look at the roster. So I'm going to be the first person to admit when I make one of my many mistakes. So the first one for the season, we're going to mark it off. I don't think I gave Wallkill, enough respect. I don't know if respect's the right word, but I really do think, and you ranked Wallkill ahead of Poughkeepsie. I like Wallkill. I really think, I think they're going to get the better of Poughkeepsie. And they have some, obviously the new quarterback, A.J. Dombrowski, and they have some talented players on the line. So I will get that out of the way. I'm already flip-flopping. I do like Wallkill. Let's talk Division 2 really quick because it could be wide open. You have New Paltz, Port, Goshen, Saugerties. With all due respect, I don't know that Saugerties will be in that championship mix. But that said, you don't want to rule them out. I like Port in that division. I think this is their year to really make a big step. How do you feel about that?
It could be. Talking to Coach Matt Polanis, he kind of gives the impression this is his best team, in his 4th season as coach, the best Port team that he's had. I think New Paltz is a perennial power in Class B. I think New Paltz Port is going to be a great showdown in that division. Either one of those teams. To me, that's a toss-up. New Paltz has a great tradition, good team every year. Another good one coming up. I'm just not sure if if they're going to be good enough to win that, but I did pick them number 1. I think it's the New Paltz Port division. Tell me a little bit about Goshen. You spent some time over there with them, and can they be in that mix?
Well, I think Goshen, they're running a spread offense now with John Mardiniak, who previously was the Goshen head coach a few years back, then went to Monroe, learned under Pat DeLiso, the Urban Meyer of Section 9 when it comes to offense. I'm sure he'll get a chuckle out of that. But so they're going to run a spread. They're pretty excited. They're down a little on numbers. I think really we'll get a good vibe on Goshen. They open with Burke, tough game. Then they have Warwick. So those are going to be 2 tough games, and we'll see where that goes. But I certainly don't count Goshen out. That division per se, that to me could have tiebreaker written all over it. Last week of the season when you have all those different scenarios.
Agreed.
let's talk Class AA, and then we're going to go to the other classes. Newburgh, people are talking about them as, a super team, and I'm sure if Coach Bill Bianco from Newburgh is listening, he's cringing, but again, we will say super team. That said, you have Monroe with a wonderful history, a wonderful system, great players, you can't count them out. And Pine Bush, ever since they won that title 2 years ago, they're very confident, and they're confident. They have a retooled offensive line, and they like that. They have Dylan Eller at fullback. They have some new guys running the wing. But I still, in my predictions, I did take Newburgh 1, Monroe 2, and I still think that will be a battle, that game, week 4, and then Pine Bush. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to pick against Newburgh, Monroe. I mean, I can go either way, I think. I really like Monroe's quarterback, Ryan O'Malley. This kid grew a couple inches already from last season. He's a bigger kid now. He's probably going to wind up being about 6'3". And he's the type of kid who could eventually be a Division I prospect, I think, just because of his size, smarts, ability to throw it, to run it pretty well. So you know more about Newburgh than I do. You spent some time. I spent some time over Monroe Woodbury, so I'm probably a little biased in their favor of what they have. I think they're going to have another really good team. I really do.
Yeah, I think the key for Monroe, and I think one thing in talking about Monroe, which they might not get enough credit for, is they've always done a wonderful job, but they've had teams in the past where they've lost a lot of starters, even last year, and there they were at the Carrier Dome.
Yes.
Speaking of Newburgh, you have Forbes, DeBose, Dennis in the backfield. I think Tyreek Washington at quarterback is going to be dynamic, but they also have a lot of powerful players back on the line. Defensively, you have Jelani Hanks, also a linebacker, Will Denker, who's only a junior. He had some experience last year. You have Isaac Serrano and Oliver Hanvier. Excuse me for botching your last name, Oliver. But they're going to be powerful. That's one thing when we go back to Monroe. They have one player returning on each side of the line.
Right.
So you being an old high school football star, you would know the game is won in the trenches, and I think that's very important. And when you say super team, I think, we'll talk about the skill players, but they have it on the inside, Newburgh, and also DeBose will be playing safety, and Forbes, who 2 years ago played D-back, will play D-back, so that could be interesting. On to Division II real quick. I picked Washingtonville to win that division. Another coach, Don Clark, he's done a wonderful job in the past where he's lost like his entire team. And last year, I think he only had 3 wins, but he did make the playoffs. This year they have so many players back, and I picked them to win that division. I had Valley Central second, Minising third, Warwick fourth. You could probably flip-flop that any way you want. It's going to be a competitive division. And then Roosevelt, I had them last, and you know what? They could be dangerous.
Sure. And
they have a great coach over there. Actually, for Dutchess County, we got to give him a pop. Brian Bellino, a really good guy.
Absolutely.
On to Class B. Obviously, it's Marlboro's division once again. They've lost a lot of players. The one thing, because Burke hasn't been shy about it. They're in B, and not only that, they want a shot at Marlboro. Unfortunately, that game won't be until the second to last week of the season, I believe, and they're not in the same division, so they would have to meet, in the championship for it to really mean something, most likely. But that could be a good game. What do you think of Burke winning Class C and now coming up to B? I still like Marlboro right now.
Yeah, Marlboro's just one of those teams that I'm not going to pick against, and it's kind of like Cornwall in A. I don't pick against Cornwall until somebody beats them. Burke, hey guys, you better bring your double A game for Marlboro because Marlboro's always stacked, and I know they lost some key guys, but they have some big time starters back too, And I hope Burke is right there with them. It makes for a competitive, exciting environment, but I'm not going to pick against Marlboro.
Yeah, I will say this. I do believe potentially, I love Reno Tambori, running back, safety for Marlboro. I think right now, best player in Class B has to be Burke, running back, Matt Prisbach. He had the
terrific player.
Monster game, over 400 yards in the Class C championship, and you can also make the case that they could have perhaps not perhaps the best, one of the best offensive linemen in Section 9 in Brandon Rollins. So they are stacked there. They have some other players that are pretty good. We also have to get a shout out to their linebacker, Mike Martinelli, who's becoming just a wonderful quote. He will definitely have to be a guest on the show, and he'll be eager. Cole Jeanette at Monroe, you've met your match as far as someone who likes attention. So I love the both of you, and you're both welcome on the show. I think looking at Class B, with all due respect, the only team that I think could contend with those two is Highland, and that could be a reach. They do have some talent, but they lost some key players, linebacker A.J. Buchanan. I do think this is going to come down to Marlboro and Burke. You have O'Neill moving up to Class B. Anthony Finocchio always does a wonderful job there. They're moving up from Class C. They lost a lot of players. Red Hook, I think, is going to be improved with their coach, Bill Stutz, back. Rondout with the great turnaround. But I do think this is just looking like Marlboro and Burke all the way. Class C is just 4 teams this year: Liberty, Millbrook, Sullivan West, and Tri-Valley. Real quickly, I like Millbrook. Last year they lost a tough semifinal to O'Neill, Class C, and Millbrook, I believe, had beaten them during the regular season. You have Sullivan West. They have some talent coming back. You have quarterback Richard Shevak. You have Andrew Stabbert and Brian Stouch in the backfield. I like Sullivan West at second place, and Will Montgomery, who did our preview, that's what he had him. And then you had Liberty and Tri-Valley. Liberty loses quarterback Quinn Jackson. Tri-Valley, a winless team last year, and they played Pine Plains week 1, who also was winless, so obviously something has to give. You and I, after your car blew up, we did make it up to the Carrier Dome.
Yeah, we eventually did make it, didn't we? Thanks for appreciate you remind me of that too, by the way.
We had an adventure going up to the Carrier Dome, but like the good reporters, diligent we are, after Kevin's car was disabled, we still made it up and covered Chester against Randolph in the Class D state championship.
And by the way, that was the last time either one of us drove in that car.
Yep, so that was the end of it. But like I said, so Chester, talk to me. What do they are obviously the team to beat. You have Vinny Alloy, among others, coming back. You have the venerable Ron Stover as coach. Well, let's be honest, you don't see anyone touching Chester.
Negative, no. I don't see anybody touching Chester, I should say. And it's just a terrific program. Ron Stover's turned that into a great program year in and year out. The kids are really tough kids all the time, and just a real scrappy team. And it's a shame that they didn't meet a little better fate last year at the Dome, but they ran into a heck of a team up there. And Chester's one of those teams that being in Class D and being and having the winning tradition that they have, and the confidence and the level of pride that they have, they are becoming that type of team that can always make it to the Carrier Dome.
I agree, and last year they did it, and like I said, the win over Mariah in the semifinals when Vinny threw for 7 touchdowns. After the year of the quarterback snub, which I want to thank the Chester fans again for putting that in my face politely. Like I said,
But Vinny being a class guy who never
Vinny is a gentleman.
Take offense to it at all. That you just made a colossal mistake with that.
I know. I did make an error. But anyway, like I said, those are I have made my share of mistakes, and I will fully admit them. So we're gonna talk now about some big games this week. Real quick. We're going to steal something from ESPN, the 2-minute drill. I'm kidding. We don't want to get sued or anything. We're just going to talk about these games really quickly. One game we talked about, Washingtonville. They're playing at Middletown Friday night. We're going to start with Friday, and then we'll go into Saturday. Washingtonville at Middletown. Now, Middletown, I did something for my video show this week on Middletown. They're a team that says they're going to turn it around. I mean, they haven't had a winning season in many years. They've been the doormat of Division I and Class AA. The thing is, they have some talent coming back. They have some skill players. I like Bill Donahue, the coach, a former player. They're a really good guy.
Yes.
So Washingtonville at Middletown. I know Washingtonville scrimmaged Pine Bush last week. They gave them all they could handle. And I know Middletown's confident. I know Washingtonville's confident. I think it's a really big game.
I think it's a quick gut check for Middletown. I really do. You know, they won 4 games last year. They've shown some signs that they're going to get to that next level of being a team that at least competes for a playoff berth, at least wins more than 1 game within the division. I think they really need to have a great show in there to get things going because Washington's a really good team, but Middletown's it's 3rd season for Bill Donahue, and I think it's about time that probably where they need to take the next step.
I say this, you never want to say must win for week 1, but just since they have the expectations, I think it almost is a must win. And like I said,
Sure.
You don't ever want to say that week 1. Middletown will then have the Erie Bell game week 2 against Port, and I feel like if you can beat Washingtonville, you're going to be feeling really good into Port.
Absolutely.
And then if you beat Port, I believe they have VC in week 3. And, so speaking of VC, this is a team a lot of coaches have talked about as far as having a breakout year. And like I said, in Division 2, it's really going to be so difficult. I think really anything goes. That's another potential tiebreaker. You have VC hosting Pine Bush. Valley Central has Kenny Gray, junior quarterback, who's really done a nice job. They have Nick Pacheco back at wide receiver, who had some big games. And I know Ron Intruini, the coach, is high on Billy Cavalluzzo. Pine Bush beat BC, I believe it was 28-0 last year. And they have the power game. And like I said, Pine Bush very confident, a quiet confidence after winning that title 2 years ago. One player to watch, defensive lineman Anthony Pratt. He had a 4-sack game last year. He's a monster. I'm going to take Pine Bush in that game. I just think their run game. And like I said, they are pretty confident.
I think Pine Bush is a really, really solid team and has become a real solid program. I think that's a major, major step up for Valley Central. I'd be really surprised if they found a way. I mean, I'd love to see a competitive game, of course. Always love to see a competitive game. I just think Pine Bush has an awful lot of weapons.
Also, I like Friday night, Port at Minisink. Minisink Valley last year, they were like the Yankees starting rotation this year. They had it was like 10 or more injuries. After making the playoffs the year before and beating Monroe, they had a really disappointing season because of the injuries. Port's going into Minisink. I love this game because if you think about, stereotypically just 2 tough towns, also with quite a wrestling history. I don't know
Sure.
if there might be like a 2-point takedown at some point during that game. Minisink has Joe Sessa coming in at running back, the lacrosse star. Mild-mannered, humbled, actually doesn't even really want to talk to the media, and he's been very respectful about that. But you have big offensive line. Port has some big offensive linemen. They have Noah Nessel at quarterback coming back. And again, to me, this is like Washingtonville, Middletown, a nice test. I don't think it's make or break, but I think if Minisink wants to be for real in that Division 2, they don't have to win this game. And Port, it's kind of a show-me game. They lost a close one to Minisink last year. I'm going to take Minisink in a close one. And like I said, I'm going to be at the Pine Bush game on Friday night, but this I think will be a heck of a game.
It's going to be a great game. That's really a toss-up game in my mind. Minisink, it's really, I mildly disagree. I think Minisink really needs to win that game, because there's not a whole lot of teams that they're going to dominate on their schedule, and I think they have to get these wins when they can. I think this is one that they really need to win. And by the way, I appreciate the fact that you used the Yankee analogy of injuries twice now, both verbally and in this special section of Minisink's injury woes last season. So, feel free to get some new material for your next show.
Well, actually, I'll probably just use it many times. But by the way, I haven't given up on the Yankees. I think they may run the table right through the World Series.
That puts you in a class, I believe, of 1. But okay, well, continuing on.
But anyway, let's go back to you calling out Kevin Gallagher. Kevin Gallagher, you've been called out by Kevin Gleason. KG calls out KG. He's called, of course, I'm kidding, Kevin Gallagher, one of the good guys of Section 9 athletics. Now, the Ulster County Special, Walk-Hill at Marlboro. I'm going to say it's obviously going to be a great game.
Sure, it's a great game.
And that will be a really nice test for A.J. Dombrowski, the sophomore quarterback. I got to speak with him during preseason camp. What a nice guy. And Rory Boyce, first-year coach, Really great guy, former defensive coordinator. I'm going to take Marlboro in a close one.
That's a really, really interesting, intriguing matchup right there. I don't know if Wallkill is quite ready to win that game. Wallkill might be a type of team that gets a little better, deeper into its schedule. Marlboro is, such an amazing season that they're coming off of. I mean, to me, that's such a 50-50 game. It's going to go right down the wire. Really interesting game to watch.
Okay. Hey, and then Friday night, to wrap it up on Friday night, we're going to talk about just Highland New Paltz, Class B rivals. I think, I was at New Paltz this week, and I think they feel like they need to, win that game, moving up to Class A and establishing themselves. I'm going to take New Paltz. I covered them last year. Highland beat them 20-14 in overtime. I'm going to go with Coach Tom Tegler and New Paltz in that game. And then, Monroe. It's they're hosting Holy Cross. That's a non-league game, but that's a Catholic school. I'll take Monroe. So that's obviously another big game. But on Saturday, to me, the game that sticks out is Burke at Goshen, crosstown rivals. Goshen,
yeah.
John Mardiniak with the spread. Ed Killenberger, the head coach. Burke. The moving up to Class B. I think. This is a big game for both teams. I'm going to take Burke. I just think with Przbaki, he's the best player on the field. Run behind Rollins, that's elementary. I think, Burke has a little too many weapons. But I do still think Goshen is going to surprise some people. And I think the following week in Warwick, I don't think that will be a walkover for Warwick. I think Goshen's going to develop.
I agree. I just think it's really hard to pick against Burke in that game. One other note of interest, I think, is Cornwall. I wrote a little bit about it. Cornwall's opening a few weeks schedule. It's really loaded with some non-league talent, and hopefully they don't get beat up a little bit coming out of that schedule going into league play, because they got some really, really tough teams there.
Yeah, and looking at some of the schedules this year, Cornwall, they have Amsterdam. They're a big, physical, tough team up at the Carrier Dome. Mike Conley will make his debut up there. Obviously they were up there where they lost to Aquinas in the Class AA state championship with the stud quarterback Jake Zembiak throwing the ball all over the place. Real quick, before we go on to Cornwall's schedule, I really like what Mike's done in a few weeks as far as camp. He really has just settled in there. It's been a seamless transition. I like the hire, just a young guy, great pedigree, if you will. But being at practice a few times, I've loved just what Mike's done, and the players seem to like him too. And he obviously replaced a likable guy in Marcus Hughes.
Perfect hire, absolutely perfect for that program. He'll take that program absolutely as far as he can go. If he can, get by that early schedule without being too nicked up with that team, facing Cardinal Hayes, one of the really the best teams in the city, really, last year.
Yeah.
In week 2, and was in Amsterdam week 1, then Cardinal Hayes,
and then Marlboro, I believe.
And then Marlboro, very good, yeah. And so 3 biggies to start, but Conley, just an absolute up and coming coach, only 29 years old. He's probably within a few years going to establish himself as one of the best head coaches in the section, if he's not already one of the best head coaches in the section. It's just hard to say that before he's led his team in one game, but he's going to be terrific.
Yeah, and that position, of course, had a lot of applicants, so that says a lot that Mike Cromer, but he obviously deserved the job. So, and one other game on Saturday, real quick, Newburgh. I have them preseason, my number 1. They're going to host Iona Prep at 1:30. I'll take Newburgh in that game. So again, this was the first edition of the V845 podcast. I'm Justin Rodriguez with Kevin Gleason. We will have plenty of guests, coaches, players, and also you're welcome to email me at jrodriguez@th-record.com if you're a player that would like to be on the show. Again, I'll be reaching out to players I already have. And also, if you want to, follow me on Twitter at JustinRod845 for all kinds of news, information, things of that nature. So, signing off. Thanks for listening.